everyone, welcome back. I'm the City Witch. Today's video is going to be a book review, and the book we're reviewing today is called Hex Twisting by Diana Rochelle. So this is what the book looks like. So let's just read the front cover first of all. So Hex Twisting by Diana Rochelle, counter magic spells for the initiated witch. Before I read the back of the book, I just want to take a moment to comment on that. For the initiated witch. That doesn't mean initiated into a specific practice of any kind. It means that you need to have been practicing witchcraft long enough that you've self-initiated, declared yourself a witch, and that you know what witchcraft is, what type of witch you want to be, what path you're walking, and you've cast your first spells. You're well and truly on your journey. So this is not a book for a complete and utter novice or beginner practitioner that has only just stepped into witchcraft. So if you've just dipped your toes into the craft, into witchcraft, this is not the book for you. This does not teach you magic, it does not teach you the foundations, the basics of magic, and it doesn't teach you witchcraft, okay? This just teaches you the subject of magical self-defense and how to deal with magical attacks when you come under an attack. This is still an excellent book to have in your collection if you're a beginner. It's still going to be something that I recommend you have, because eventually down the line you'll need this book. But if you're a brand new beginner to the craft, you're unlikely to use this for many years to come, because you're still learning to cast spells, you're still learning how to cast spells, how to work with correspondences, how to manipulate energy, recognizing your own energy, call your personal power back to you, and all that sort of stuff. So it's very unlikely you'll fall prey to any kind of magical attack at all while you're so new to the craft, because you won't have pissed anyone off, you're not on anyone's radar, you're just not big enough, you're not important enough. Sorry guys, but it's true. Let's read the back of the book. So, break spells, hexes, curses, and any harmful magic thrown at you. Even if you're the most mild-mannered practitioner who sticks to personal development magic, you can still end up getting energetically attacked. True. Hex twisting is the key to countering any curse or hex cast your way, providing a variety of techniques to defend yourself. This indispensable guide helps you drive hurtful magic out of your home, trap malevolent spirits, and more. Diana Rochelle has spent years handling psychic attacks, astral injuries, and work-for-hire hauntings. She carefully studied how each one worked, and now she passes that knowledge on to you through this book's powerful collection of exercises, tips, and tools. Discover how to diagnose, recover from, and prevent jinxes, hexes, crosses, and curses. Explore countermeasure recipes, reversal spells, and cleansing rituals. Whatever is after you, this book can help you stop it. Bold statement, but absolutely true. This book does not disappoint in any way. It is packed full of information, but it is definitely a book from intermediate to advanced practitioner. Now, there are a lot of different protection magic books on the market, and I'm going to cover a couple of them in this video just to give you an idea of them. So one of the best books, and the first one that comes to mind, is by Jason Miller, and it's called Protection and Reversal Magic. So in his book, he teaches you a lot of various different occulty kind of techniques for protection magic. A lot of it is traditional old school magic, incorporating a little bit of Western occultism or hermetic magic. He works a lot with Hecate in that book, and he talks to you about dealing with attacks, magical spells, how to create decoys and defensive techniques to block any attacks set against you. Definitely by far the best protection magic book I have ever read, and still my #1 go-to for any kind of attack. The next book I'm going to recommend to you guys is called Psychic Protection, and it's by Ted Andrews. Ted Andrews is a wonderful writer. He tends to work more in the shamanic communities, so a lot of his training background is in shamanism, particular emphasis on Native America culture, and he talks a lot about indigenous people and a lot of their practices in his books. Now, he's initiated into a lot of those practices, and his heritage is Native American, so he's talking from a Native American background with permission to do so. So when you read his books, it's not cultural appropriation, guys. And in his Psychic Protection book, he talks to you about psychic protection in particular, and working with animal spirits and guides for protection, and how to shield yourself and protect yourself using their energies. And that is very, very interesting, very eye-opening, and there's a lot of really good techniques in his book. And again, it's quite a small book, but it's packed full of information. The next book I'd recommend to you guys is by Elena Dugan, and it's called Practical Protection Magic. In her book, she breaks protection down under the 4 elements of earth, air, fire, and water. Then she has a section on spirit and miscellaneous chapters as well that cover various different subjects of interest under protection magic. So she teaches you how to work with the 4 elements, how each element has its place and its protective qualities. She gives you lots of different ways to work with those elements for protection and warding your home. And then she's also quite a whimsical, fun writer. So when you're reading it, she makes you laugh, she makes you smile, she gives you lots of examples from her own life and her own experiences that makes the book a fun read all the way through. But she's also got a very serious note when she's dealing with those problems, and her chapters are they're named quite funny, and there's some quite funny spells in there as well to try. All of them very powerful and very effective because I've done them all. One of my favourite things from that book is she talks about working with gargoyles, giving you the history of gargoyles, why they were incorporated into protecting churches and graveyards and sacred sites, and how you can use them to protect and ward your home. So that was a really interesting chapter to me. And then the last book I would recommend is by Judy Hall, and it's called Psychic Protection. And in her book, she talks about psychic self-defense. Now, in the book, she covers lots and lots of different types of attacks and how to deal with those attacks. She also talks to you about symptoms and things to look out for. But my favourite thing about the book is right at the back, she gives you a table of contents for all the different symptoms, and then you break down the symptoms into what type of attack it is, and then she tells you the chapter to go to how to deal with that attack. And that makes it so easy. You literally just go to the back, go, yeah, that's what I'm feeling, this is how I need to deal with it, bang, and get it done. And then she gives you some great rituals and cleansing techniques as well, and some really great crystal protective charms to try. So those are the books that I recommend on protection magic. So this one teaches you how to recognise if you're under attack. So there's a section on diagnosing yourself and various different ways you can identify, am I under attack? If so, what type of attack? How serious is it? And why am I under attack? And how do I deal with it? Okay, so there's a whole chapter on diagnosing an attack, then working to the right chapter on how to deal with that type of attack. And she gives you a lot of really interesting techniques. Jason Miller kind of does the same thing, but he talks more about, rather than transmuting the energy of the attack, he talks about sending it back, return to sender, effectively. In this, she gives you return to sender, transmuting it, absorbing it, destroying it, transferring it somewhere else entirely. Talks about a little bit about decoy magic, which is bottles and bottle protection magic, and how to bottle up that negative spell that's been sent to you, or trap an entity, things like that. So she covers a wide variety of things in this book. She also talks through in one chapter about how to layer your protections throughout the year. So she talks about things you should be doing on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis, and then a yearly basis. How to record them in your diary and make sure that a few days beforehand you're recasting, relayering all these protections. You should never use the same protections over and over. You should shake it up, break up your routines, try something new. So last year I did this year I'm going to do this instead. The reason for that is because people start to figure out your techniques. If they see a particular ward of protection necklace on you, they might know how to get around that, but then they might not know how to get around a different charm that you're wearing. So it's always good to keep on top of these things and try new things and shake up your routines from time to time. And she talks a lot about that and the reasons behind it. So there's a lot in this book that I really, really enjoyed. Now I have to say there's a large section of this book that I already know and practice and incorporate, but there was a few really interesting nuggets in this book that I absolutely adored. Now I'm going to talk to you about the content. So let's find the content. So this is what you can expect from this book. First of all, you get the acknowledgements of the book, and then chapter 1, what is counter magic and why is it necessary? So this is where she breaks it down to why it's important and why you should be incorporating it into your craft. Chapter 2, Am I Cursed? Methods of Curse Diagnostic. That was my favourite chapter. Chapter 3, Your Magical Body, Yourself, Cleansing, Clearing and Spotting Influence. So this is where she talks about cleansing, removing stagnant trapped energy, talking about clearing out your home from clutter and bad energy. She talks a little bit about Feng Shui, the layout of your home, and how you should be moving through your home, cleansing your windows, reflective surfaces. She goes through a number of different things that you should be doing on a regular basis to clear out unwanted energy, make sure nothing's sticking, clinging and building up over time that will become a problem later on. Chapter 4, Get it out of here. Drive negative magic out of the home. So this is where she talks about driving out all those negative energies that are already in the home. So the other chapter is kind of about cleansing the home and the body and making sure you're keeping on top of a certain routine. This one is about if there's negative energy present, what do you do and how do you deal with it? So she walks you through that, but specifically that chapter focuses on where you're living, your home, your environment. And she gives you techniques for if you're in a house as opposed to if you're in an apartment, if you have a shower but you don't have a bath, and vice versa. So she talks you through various different techniques, so don't be worried too much about, oh, I don't live in a house, I live in a flat or an apartment. She covers all of that. Chapter 5, chase off the small stuff, daily maintenance for evil eye, gossip and other annoyances. So this is where she talks a little bit about the evil eye and jinx work, and sometimes how through our own negative thoughts we end up creating negative thought forms that end up attacking us or causing us problems in our life. How do we deal with those things and get rid of them? Then she talks about those around us that can be jealous or harmful through gossip and fear and hate and jealousy, and she teaches you how to deal with that basically as well. And then chapter 6, you did what now? Bindings, freezings and reversals for crossed boundaries. So here she talks to you about differences between bindings, freezings and reversals and how to work each and every one of them, and gives you different techniques for that. Chapter 7, health protection, spells to ward and preserve the energetic bodies, so physical and energetic. So she walks you through the physical body. So she's already given you a chapter on the home and the environment and where you live. Now she gives you a chapter on how to work with the body and protecting your physical person, and a lot of the techniques in that again were really interesting. Chapter 8, spells for taking it to the mattresses, finding out who did what and what to do about them if they went too far. So that chapter was quite interesting as well. So she talks a lot in that chapter about if you find out someone's done something and you're kind of like, what should I do about that? Should I do anything at all? There's various different techniques for dealing with that situation, handling it in a certain way, and how to identify why someone might have done something and get to the root of it. Now in that chapter as well, she doesn't say it, but it's kind of implied that maybe someone does something for your highest good, but then it has a negative impact and you're like, how do you deal with that? So there's that in there as well. Chapter 9, hi, here's your butt back. Hex twisting of so-called irreversible spells. So that was probably one of my favourite chapters, because I'm not one of these witches that believes you can't undo a spell or you can't reverse a spell. That's sort of rubbish, guys. If you cast a spell, it's your energy, right? You have control over your energy, or at least you should. If you have done your homework and you've set the correct foundations in your craft, you know how to manipulate, transmute, reverse, control, and, undo your own spells. You know how to manipulate your own energy, your power, or at least you should do. If you don't know how to do that, you need to go back to Witchy basics, because that is one of the first lessons you should be learning as a magical practitioner. If you're not doing those basics and you don't know how to control and manipulate energy, then your spells are going to be ineffective, because you don't know how to build up energy, a kind of power. You don't know how to build up that energy within you, and you don't know how to release it and direct it properly. That is called energy manipulation and control. Without it, your spells fall short and they're not charged and empowered correctly. Once you empower a spell and it's freed, it's still part of you because it has your energy signature in it. You can recall that, you can redirect it, you can absorb it, you can transmute it. There's a lot you can do with energy, whether it's inside your body or outside of your body. And we learn how to manipulate our energy from within, but also external forces around us as well as witches. So it stands to reason that if you cast a spell, you do have some form of control over that spell because it's your energy. Therefore, you can undo it, you can reverse it, you can break it. Now, someone else's spell set against you, you have a choice of how you want to deal with that spell and energy. And people like me that are professional practitioners, we stake our reputations on being able to do these things, and we successfully do them. So if it wasn't possible to break a spell, then why do we sell spell breakers? Why do we sell curse reversals or, return to senders? The answer is because they do exist, they are possible, and they do work. They're not cons. So in that chapter, she covers that and talks about how every spell can be reversed, broken and removed. Don't let anyone tell you that, oh, you're stuck forever, that's an irreversible curse, or it's tied to your bloodline and it'll never be broken. It's bullshit. I'm sorry to be blunt, guys, but it is bullshit. It can be broken. You just need to know how to break it. And that requires training and study and experience. Chapter 10. When spirits are jerks, handling hauntings, harassments, and hired spirits. So that chapter was also very interesting. She talks about when somebody sets a demon, a spirit, a ghost, or an entity against you, and they send them to attack you, all right? So instead of it being a spell, it's a physical being that they've employed and paid to do a job, kind of like a hitman for hire in the spiritual world. And then they come to your home. Now, in the warding section, she talks about making sure that you ward against entities and spirits so they can't enter your property or your land without your permission. Many people forget about that and just ward against witchcraft or psychic attacks. They forget about entities, spirits, ghosts, and the like. Now, she provides you with that information in this book, so these things shouldn't be able to happen. But say you do fall under attack, she also teaches you how to deal with those kinds of things. So she first of all teaches you how to kick a spirit out of your home, how to deal with a haunting. She then goes on to talk about if you're being harassed by an entity or a spirit, say one followed you home from a graveyard, something along those lines. And then she talks about hired spirits and how you can actually renegotiate with that spirit and buy them out of their contract and re-employ them against the person who set them against you in the first place, which was very interesting. And actually, if you think about Hitman, some of them have, honour enough that they'll fulfil the contract because they've been paid to do it, but then some of them are like, you give me a bit more money, I'll swap sides. Because their loyalty can be bought, some of them. So spirits are kind of the same. Depending on the spirit, the entity, and their loyalties and their kind of, I suppose, code of ethics, they may be willing to swap sides. And most of the time, if they've been summoned up, mistreated, abused, forced into doing what they're doing and they're not happy about it, they might be more than happy to have you break that contractual agreement and re-employ them to do something else, especially if you're willing to treat them with respect. Then chapter 11, she goes into, that was terrible, let's not do that again. Recovery and prevention after spiritual trauma. So this is all about healing and getting over attacks and how you should handle that. And it shouldn't just sit on your ass, now it's all over. That you need to make sure you repair any wards or broken protections by recasting. You need to assess your aura and your health and your well-being and make sure that nothing got through. Cleanse yourself and deal with the aftermath of that energy that might be trapped or stuck. So if you break a curse, you don't just break it and that's it. You actually should do healing and cleansing directly after, because the cleansing removes any trapped leftover energy after the curse has been broken, which means you're clearing the decks. Then you do healing to repair the damage that was done by the curse or the evil spell, and then you want to protect yourself against further attacks of that nature. So, so there are stages to doing magic. So, whenever I do a spell breaker or curse removal for a client and you see that, that's not all I do. I don't just do that. I do it as a package deal, and I only do work like that as a package deal. You can't just buy a curse breaker from me. You would have to buy a curse breaker package, which would include cleansing, healing, and protection work, because I need to do those things to make sure I know I've done a good job. Otherwise, I'm not a good practitioner, and of course, I'm leaving you open to further attack. I'm leaving you open to that curse coming back, that spell affecting you, all that negative energy that's still stuck and trapped, infecting that wound, because it will be a wound. So I need to make sure I've healed that wound, that I've cleansed it, cleaned it, and that I've protected you by putting that plaster over the top. So she talks about that in that chapter and how important it is to go through the process. And then chapter 12, final notes for the potential traumatized. So this is kind of why she says, but don't panic and don't think all these things are going to happen to you. This is just in case, and that if you make sure that your protections are in place and you're warding and doing all these things she recommends at the beginning of the book, the second half of the book you probably won't ever use any of these techniques, and if you do, it'll be a rarity. She also kind of says, and I did agree with her, where in the old days we used to say, oh, curses are so rare, and I still tend to say that to some clients because they get paranoid they're cursed because they've been told by some psychic. And they are rare, but they are becoming more common these days as we realise more and more witches are into the darker arts, and the traditional witchcraft included dark, baneful magic, not just light and love. That's more of a modern concept. And as more traditional witches are finding their way on the internet, becoming more active in their craft, showing off their craft on TikTok and Instagram, we're realising there's a lot more practitioners out there willing to curse and harm people. So she talks about that and says it's better to be safe than sorry, make sure you're well protected, and don't just assume that if, if someone tells you you're cursed, don't dismiss it, but don't also straight away believe it. Make sure you go and have that information checked, double checked and triple checked before you just assume it's correct. And then don't panic if it turns out you are under attack or have been cursed or a victim of some spell. Look at what type of spell it is, why it's there, how long it's been there, what was the reason it was done to you, or the motivation behind it. It's going to explain a lot and also help you identify who might have done it. Some spells become baneful in your life or create negative impacts, even though they're cast with the highest of intentions. So you can get a loved one that casts a spell to have you find love because you're unhappy, miserable, alone, and from their perspective they don't want you to be alone. You might be perfectly happy alone, but then suddenly all these people come out of the woodwork and they're asking for your attention, your affection, and you might end up with a stalker as a result. Now the spell was done with good intentions because they don't want to see you lonely, they want to see you happy. But you were happy alone, and as a result you're now bombarded with all these random people coming at you, and now you feel really claustrophobic and fed up, and now you've got a stalker as a result. So it wasn't meant to harm, but it ended up harming. So you have to know how to assess situations correctly, and she does talk about that in the book and say don't be over traumatized by it. Work your healings, work your protections, make sure you stay safe, be logical about these things, don't jump to conclusions, do your fact checking and research, and you will be completely fine. I loved that as a final note because it was brilliant. And then at the end of the book, recommended reading to further yourself, and then she does give you an index as well, and then there's a section at the back for notes in the book, so you can add your own notes and theories in if you want to. So from my perspective, this is a 10 out of 10, guys. This book is absolutely amazing. It's definitely something I recommend to every practitioner to have in their collection. Not great for a beginner, as I say, more intermediate to advanced practitioner. There are certainly things that I learned that was brand spanking new, that was new to me. There was definitely some techniques and tricks in this book that I thought were really handy and useful, and they've helped me design some brand new wards and techniques for myself as well. So brilliant book, 10 out of 10. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up and click the bell so YouTube will tell you when my next video comes out. If you'd like to offer support, like and love to this channel, you can do that through my Amazon wishlist or Patreon. Both links are provided. I will also link this book as well, as I said earlier. If you'd like to book my magical services for divination, healing or spell work, you can do that through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter or via email. All the links are provided. If you have any questions about this video or the book, please leave a comment and I'll get to you as soon as I can. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Take care of yourselves and I'll see you soon. Blessed be.